Hello, and welcome to this information session concerning scouting with the 3rd Kanata Scout Group. My name is Leo Case, and I'm the Group Commissioner for the 3rd Kanata Scout Group. In this version of the presentation, I will speak English because we're discussing our scouting programs in the English language. Mais si vous cherchez le scoutisme en français pour vos enfants, je vous invite à trouver une présentation enregistrée auprès d'un projet d'offrir le scoutisme à Kanata en français. Veuillez visiter notre site web www.thirdkanata.ca/scoutisme. C'est Third Kanata, le numéro 3, les lettres RD, Kanata dans un mot, .ca/scoutisme. Before I begin, I want to say that the lands from which I'm speaking to you are part of the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, whose presence here reaches back to time immemorial. Here's an agenda for this information session. I will introduce myself as the Group Commissioner of the 3rd Kanata Scout Group. Next, I will introduce you to scouting, our methodology and program called the Canadian Path, the participation fees, our policies and processes for selecting volunteers, our child safety program, and a summary of the next steps if you'd like to get involved as a member of Scouts Canada, an adult volunteer, or both. So allow me a few moments to introduce myself. I'm the new Group Commissioner of the 3rd Kanata Scout Group, having taken this role at the end of January 2021. My scouting experience started as a youth member of the Boy Scouts of America, and I participated through the age of 18 with many great adventures. After relocating from work from the United States to Belgium, where I lived for 13 years, I became a volunteer for 10 years with the UK Scout Association and their British Scouting Overseas program for English-speaking scouts abroad. When I arrived in Canada in the summer of 2020, I thought that volunteering with Scouts Canada would be another great way to get to know my new community and use my experience to help a local scout group. Professionally, I'm a director of global sales operations at Trend Micro, a worldwide cybersecurity leader. At Trend, I'm also an active volunteer with our Internet Safety for Kids and Families program and present to schools, parents, and civic organizations about how to make the world safe for exchanging digital information. I live in Stittsville, been married for 21 years, and I have 3 children, 19, 17, and 15, 2 in high school, and my eldest studies at Concordia University in Montreal. Finally, I obviously speak English, et je parle français sans difficulté. Ik spreek Nederlands omdat ik ben Belg. Hablo un poco español porque hace 5 años que estudio español en los Estados Unidos. Ich spreche ein klein bisschen Deutsch, parlo un po' di italiano, etc. I love languages, but those are the only ones I feel comfortable admitting publicly that I can speak. Regrettably, don't speak any Arabic or Mandarin or anything yet, but give me time. So if I'm the group commissioner, what do I do? Normally, I'm not responsible for organizing the weekly meetings for the Beavers, Cubs, Scouts, or Venturers, but I have the overall responsibility for the group. In other words, the security of the members, program quality, finances. I'm the face of the group to the community and the primary link between our neighboring groups and the headquarters. Like my professional work, where I'm responsible for the sales operations of my company, I'm responsible for all of the operations at 3rd Kanata. That's why I accepted this challenging role at the end of January 2021. Scouting was founded in 1907 by Lord Baden-Powell in the UK, and it made its appearance in Canada in the spring of 1908. In 1910, Lord Baden-Powell wrote to the then Governor General, Earl Grey, to ask him to organize scouting in Canada. In Canada today, there are over 60,000 active members and around 20,000 adult volunteers. By coincidence, Scout Canada's headquarters is actually in Ottawa, over on Baseline. Scouts Canada accepts boys and girls and has done in all sections since the 1990s. It started in older sections in the 1970s. In the United States, by contrast, it was only in 2019 that girls were permitted to join. It's one of the reasons why I decided to become involved with the British Scouts when I was living in Belgium. Even though the American Scouts were also present, I couldn't accept to exclude certain members of society. Diversity, equity, and inclusivity is personally important to me and has been a priority since my first interviews for this group commissioner role. I want that the 3rd Kanata Scout Group reflects the diversity of our community and that we offer scouting to everyone who wants to participate. For example, we've launched a special project to offer scouting in French for the first time. If you're interested in scouting in French or in a bilingual section, I invite you to visit our website at www.thirdkanata.ca/scoutisme, where you'll find lots of information. Si ce projet du scoutisme en français vous intéresse, veuillez visiter notre site web www.thirdkanata.ca/scoutisme pour les renseignements. No matter your status in Canada, whether you're Indigenous or Canadian for 12 generations or a newcomer to Canada like me, I believe that scouting should be available to you and your family. This also extends to your gender or sexual identity, your religious faith or lack of faith, your physical or intellectual challenges. We are ready to welcome everyone. Life is way more interesting when everyone is represented and when everyone's welcome. Diversity is a strength and inclusion is paramount, in my opinion. And I'm going to keep working with all members of our community to ensure that everyone knows that Scouting is available and welcoming to them. Finally, the motto of Scouting is be prepared. And we certainly apply that to everything we do. Safety is our number one priority, whether it's at a typical weekly meeting, during an excursion, or at an overnight camp. This doesn't just extend to learning how to use tools like an axe or lighting fires, but it applies to the important task of ensuring that our adult volunteers go through a rigorous vetting and verification process. We'll talk more about that in detail later in this presentation. There's a long history of Scouting in the Bridlewood neighborhood, and this group has existed since 1980. In fact, 2 of our current volunteers were Scouts in their youth here at 3rd Kanata. Normally, each group of Scouts Canada has a sponsor, which could be a church or another community organization like the Royal Canadian Legion, the Lions Club, etc. We're sponsored by the Bridlewood Community Association, and I represent 3rd Kanata at each monthly meeting. We're not at all subsidized financially by the BCA, but we work together to achieve the same goal of creating a better community in Bridlewood and Emerald Meadows neighborhoods of Kanata. But we're not alone to offer Scouting locally in the Kanata-Stittsville area. There are many different Scouts Canada groups, and sometimes we do activities together, but our members generally come from the neighborhoods that we serve. You're welcome to join whichever group you want. Do you live in the new Fernbank neighborhood? Well, technically you're in Stittsville, and of course you could join First Stittsville. However, I understand that some of the Fernbank residents send their children to schools in Glencairn. You could be welcome at First Glencairn as well. I represent the 3rd Kanata Scout Group covering Bridlewood and Emerald Meadows, and so we'd love to have you join us, but it's your choice. I mentioned that the new Francophone or bilingual sections that we're creating at 3rd Kanata, these don't exist elsewhere in the area, so if this is important to you, that might influence your decision. Also, I want to mention that there are many Girl Guide units too, but obviously they are exclusively for girls, whereas Scouts Canada is open to everyone. It's a different program, but we have a shared history, and we also occasionally see each other at regional camps. So, who are the Scouts? There are 4 sections for both boys and girls between 5 and 17 years old. The Beavers, from 5 to 7 years, Cubs, 8 to 10 years, Scouts, 11 to 14 years, and Venturers, from 15 to 17 years old. There are also Rover Scouts for young adults from 18 years old, but we don't currently have a Rover section at 3rd Kanata, and it's not in scope right now. Through our youth-led programming, Scouts pave their own path to outdoor adventure and fun by setting their own goals, creating organized plans to achieve these goals, and collectively reflecting on their experiences in personal development. Youth leadership is one of the many ways that the Scouts Canada program helps youth develop into critical thinkers and team players, better prepared for success in the world. Along the way, youth are surrounded by committed and passionate Scouters, which is what we call our adult volunteers, who create a safe and inclusive environment for youth to discover the best in themselves. A Scout is confident, capable, and empowered to create meaningful contributions to creating a better world. I mentioned a few moments ago that it's a program that is youth-led. It's true, but the level of support, of adult support, varies per section. So as this image indicates, the young Beavers are also responsible for creating their program, but the Scouters, again, the adult volunteers, are highly involved to help them. In contrast, the adult Scouters for the Scout Troop or the Venture Company play the role of advisor. They counsel the young people, but the main planning of activities, whether it's a camp, a hike, or a big adventure, remains the primary responsible of the Scouts and Venturers themselves. The Scouters are usually ready with a plan B, plan C, or plan D, but they should resist the temptation to take over the planning because they feel like they're more prepared. The Scouts Canada program, it's not for the adults, the Scouters. Rather, we support the young people and allow them to learn new skills and to have fun in a safe environment. To become a member or a Scouter, one must make a promise according to your age and section. For example, the Beaver promise is, I promise to love God and to help take care of the world. It's a simple and clear promise, easily understood by our youngest members. There's a version for Cubs, and there's one that's shared by Scouts, Venturers, and adult Scouters. Scouts Canada encourages all individual faiths and beliefs, but the organization remains secular. Therefore, there are alternatives without mention of God or the Queen. As a newcomer to Canada, I wasn't quite ready to pledge my duty to the Queen yet. But that alternative promise for the Scouts, for the Venturers, and for the adults goes like this. On my honor, I promise that I will do my best to respect my country and my beliefs, to help other people at all times, and to carry out the spirit of the Scout Law. So we've learned about who the Scouts are, our history, and where we are today. But what are Scouts doing? Well, we have a methodology called the Canadian Path. The Canadian Path program is the way that Scouting is done in Canada. It's developed by Scouts Canada, and this well-rounded program offers youth from 5 to 26 an opportunity to experience new things, have more adventures, and develop into confident and capable individuals, better prepared for success in the world. From Beaver Scouts to Rover Scouts, youth take the lead in deciding what program areas they will pursue. Taking charge, the youth will organize ways to achieve these goals and will collectively reflect on their experience after the goal is met. With support from adult Scouters, this plan, do, review method is one of the many ways that the Canadian Path can help youth develop into critical thinkers, extend their personal progression, and encourage active participation in an inclusive team dynamic. The Canadian Path brings Scouting back to its roots by using the Scout method as its basis, which was first introduced by Lord Baden-Powell, founder of the Scouting movement. There are 4 elements that make up the Canadian Path. Youth-led. The program is directed by its youth members, not the Scouters. Plan, do, review. A 3-step process informs all activities in the Canadian Path program. Adventure. Scouts explore new things, share new ideas, learn new skills, and create new paths. And finally, SPICES, which stands for social, physical, intellectual, character, emotional, and spiritual. These are the 6 dimensions of personal development for the Canadian Path program. So that's how we do it, but what are we doing? We're busy with activities during all 4 seasons in Canada. So you'll find us on a hiking trail in the spring, in a canoe in the summer, doing arts and crafts in the fall, or snowshoeing in the winter. We are not hiding indoors, even in winter, because we live in Canada. Nevertheless, I should mention that even during the COVID-19 global pandemic, we were either outdoors or in a virtual setting according to public health guidelines. Even this summer, we've been doing activities outdoors. Until recently, it wasn't possible to go camping together, but the regulations have relaxed and we're excited to finally start planning outdoor camps again. And to be honest, what extracurricular activity is better suited for the outdoors than Scouting? We respect distance rules, face masks, and maximum number of participant regulations, but Scouting is still possible. This summer alone, we've gone on hikes, met at a local splash pad, organized a games night, and more. However, when the restrictions became more strict after the April school vacation, Scouts Canada organized an 8-week virtual program for us called the Great 8 Challenge, led by a famous explorer from TV named Les Stroud, better known as Survivor Man. Together with groups all around the country, and under whatever restrictions were enforced locally, the Beavers, Cubs, and Scouts had a different challenge to complete each week with their section in a version that was appropriate for their age. This fall, we have another 8-week program called Around the World in 60 Days, and it was organized together with the Scouting organizations from 8 different countries around the world. Scouts are great at adapting to change. So what was a new format of offering a program for virtual and outdoor Scouting this past spring has become a popular addition to our programming. Early in the presentation, I talked about how everyone's welcome. I want to give you a few examples of it in practice, including a personal one. My 17-year-old son's autistic. He doesn't participate in Scouting today, but when we were in Belgium and active with the British Scouts, we as parents worked closely with his Scouters, and the adult volunteers, so that they knew how to help him and work with him. For many different situations, Scouts Canada also provides documents and online trainings for our adult volunteer Scouters on how to help our members and volunteers who need additional help. The same is true for dietary restrictions, for example. Of course, we can provide halal or kosher alternatives for food during a camp. That's easy. Or we can educate our Scouts and Scouters on how to develop a menu that doesn't require a substitute. Perhaps we can avoid a situation where a young person is singled out from the others because they're waiting for a special meal. And if you decide to join us, please work with us to help us best help you. A conversation between a parent and a Scouter could avoid confusion, embarrassment, or harm, which better ensures a fun and safe Scouting experience for everyone. Diversity is a strength and inclusion is paramount, in my opinion, as I said earlier, and I'm going to keep working with all of you to make sure that Scouting is available to everyone. We'll talk about fees and costs in just a moment, but on the subject of inclusion, I want to mention that we're not going to exclude a family from participating in Scouting because of financial challenges. 2007, Scouts Canada announced the No One Left Behind program in an effort to ensure that every youth is provided with the opportunity to experience new adventures with the local Scouts Canada program. Through No One Left Behind, membership fees and related costs are subsidized for youth from families facing economic barriers. You can find more details on the Scouts Canada website, but just in the 2019-2020 scouting year, the No One Left Behind program enabled 4,300 children to join Scouts Canada, and $900,000 was distributed. If you decide to join us, registration for new families begins on September 15th. The price remains unchanged whether you register in the fall of 2021 or from January 1st, 2022. Therefore, it's the equivalent of a 25% discount or 4 months free by registering in September, even if our fiscal year begins on January 1st. In other words, you can pay the registration in the fall as a new member and start participating immediately. The costs are $230 plus $35 that goes to our local group in a single payment. Since the start of the pandemic, Scouts Canada headquarters returns another $15 per member back to 3rd Kanata. This budget's used for renting indoor facilities for our weekly meetings, equipment, its purchase, its maintenance, its storage and insurance, training for our adult Scouter volunteers, for example, taking a first aid class from the Red Cross, our group insurance, different activities and related materials, etc., etc. In terms of other costs, there's things such as the uniform. It depends on the section, but the price doesn't exceed $35. Also, there may be fees for camps where the money is used to pay for the meals, the campsite. From time to time, there are extra activities or materials that we need to purchase. Again, this depends on the section and their activities. The venturers, as a reminder, 15 to 17 years old, at one of the neighboring Scout groups in Canada, spent a few years planning an adventure to Baffin Island in Nunavut, which required significant fundraising efforts on their part. That's an example of how extra costs could come into play. Or it could be as simple as the beavers wanting to work on a swimming badge and deciding to meet at a local indoor pool, which has a modest entry fee. Often, our extra activities can be subsidized by our fundraising efforts. The Girl Guides have their famous cookies, while Scouts Canada sells popcorn. We don't do door-to-door sales like when I was young, but instead there's a dedicated website with Canada-wide shipping. Or perhaps we organize other ways to sell. It's our main fundraising activity for the year, but if we have other fundraising efforts, these funds are used to subsidize our local activities. No adult Scout or volunteer is paid, but their expenses are reimbursed. For example, the first aid training I gave a few moments ago. Before we finish, allow me to talk a bit about volunteering. Without volunteers, scouting is simply impossible. I'm a volunteer, and contrary to what some of the Belgians that I live with thought when I lived in Belgium, I'm not paid a cent for my work in scouting. However, in the tradition of the adult scouters who helped me when I was a youth, including my own father, I offer my time and expertise to this nonprofit organization to help develop a new generation to become well-rounded youth better prepared for success in the world. Yes, you can certainly be a section scouter and work directly with the young people, but there are other ways to volunteer with scouting. For example, we have an urgent need at the moment for a quartermaster. It's a term that we use in scouting and the military, actually, for someone who manages and maintains all of our equipment. Also, I launched a digital transformation effort earlier this year after my arrival with 3rd Kanata. So now we're using the Google Workspace for Nonprofits platform. But even though I've worked in technology companies for my entire 22-year career, I'm not an expert on how to deploy these tools or manage our IT infrastructure. A volunteer is capable of helping me with this responsibility would be very welcome indeed. I give these two examples as simply examples, but it's the year 2021. Scouting doesn't only need outdoor skills. Our policies and procedures for selecting volunteers clearly shows our dedication to guaranteeing the safety of young people at all times. We conduct interviews with all potential volunteers, we do reference checks, and everyone needs to read, sign, and follow a code of conduct each year. Also, we require a police records check and a vulnerable sector check for each volunteer coming directly from the Ottawa Police Service. Finally, there are required trainings before we accept anyone to become an adult Scout or volunteer. Being a volunteer is a privilege, not a right. We don't accept everyone who steps forward, but it's to guarantee the safety of all the children and the high quality of the program. As the group commissioner, I'm responsible for enforcing this locally, and I take it extremely seriously. Speaking of child safety, we follow something called the 2-Scouter rule without any exceptions. The 2-Scouter rule is the requirement for 2 registered Scouters to be with youth at all times. 2 Scouters must be always within the field of view and within earshot of one another when with youth. The 2 Scouter rule is an integral part of the Code of Conduct that applies to all Scouts Canada volunteers and staff. Rules like this are in place to protect young people, but also to protect adults. One should never find themselves in a situation where there are no witnesses. For parents who are interested, you can find our Code of Conduct on the Scouts Canada website. For prospective volunteers, you will download and sign the code as part of onboarding. There are many advantages to becoming a volunteer. You can develop valuable skills that help you achieve personal and professional goals while challenging yourself. You complete thorough online and experiential learning and understanding youth, program planning, leadership and safety training. You gain opportunities to develop new skills like marketing, communication, financial management, and fundraising. And it allows more young people to experience all the benefits that Scouting has to offer. If your kid is having a blast at Scouts, why not join the fun and Scout together? I have fabulous memories with my own children while participating and with my father when I was young. So perhaps you're also looking to create your own memories together. So what are the next steps? As I mentioned, registration begins on September 15th for all new families, and you can register yourself at www.scouts.ca/join. There, you'll be asked to put your postcode in, and it will list in the section that you're interested in, and it will identify all of the local groups that have sections for Scouting that are available. Find the one that works for you, whether it's Beavers, Cubs, Scouts, or Adventurers, and select one that's convenient for you from a date and time perspective, and hopefully, again, with our brand new project based on language, since we're going to newly available in French and a bilingual version as well. For those of you, if you're considering volunteering, I invite you to think about what role interests you. If you're not sure, I'm available to discuss it with you individually. For prospective volunteers for a role in a uniform, choose what section interests you. And I'll note, it doesn't necessarily need to be the same section as your child or children. It's a section where your experience and the skills are best used. And then decide whether you want to work in English or in French or in a bilingual section. For volunteers not in uniform, like the quartermaster or the IT example I gave you a few moments ago, the registration and onboarding process is the same, including training and police records check, etc. But it's a different schedule according to your own convenience. But you might be interested, but you might instead want to help on a very occasional basis. That's great. Everyone's availability is different. So we would love to have your help there too. As the saying goes, many hands make light work. So the more people who can help, the better experience it will be for the young people, our Scout or volunteers, our member families, and the community. Your time is precious. So thank you very much for having watched this video information session. If you know other families who may be interested in our Scouting program, whether it's one of our brand new French or bilingual programs or our existing English speaking programs, please share this video and our contact information with them. Scouting is always more fun when you're surrounded by friends. Don't hesitate to contact me directly if you have any questions or concerns. You can contact me at gc@thirdcanada.ca. That's GC as in Group Commissioner. And I'd be happy to meet with you by video or phone. Visit our website at www.thirdcanada.ca for even more information. Lastly, give us a like on our Facebook page. You could find it by searching for Third Canada Scouts on facebook.com/Third Canada Scouts. You'll find frequent updates on what's going on. Thank you very much and goodbye.